Here we go. And it says we're live, but I don't believe it. I don't believe we're live, but
Give it a second.
well, guys, thank you for joining us. Tonight we have special guest, Daniel Noree,
Oh yeah, it's live.
one of our favorite people of all time.
Thank you.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. I got my
Good.
coffee. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. About to kick the day off. And how are you guys?
Oh, we're getting ready to end the day. It's 10 o'clock at night. At least we're on the same day, though. No, I'll take it back. You're Thursday right now, aren't you?
It's Thursday here for sure.
Yeah. So we're still Wednesday. So
Does that mean that you know what's going to happen in like the next, like, what is it? 8, 10, 12, I don't know how many hours difference
10
it is.
hours. Yep. I'm in the future.
yeah.
So can you tell me how my day at work goes, Daniel? I'm just kidding.
He wants to
but
know
it's
how his
not-
Dogecoin is doing 10 hours
Oh, gosh.
Calvin, is your hair like a lot longer than it used to be, or it's hard to see?
The problem is they kept yanking around if you could get or not get a haircut out here. So I just figured, I'm like, you know what? Just to insult whoever comes up with this stupid idea to keep shutting down haircuts, I'm just going to grow my hair out really long, like a homeless person, and then get a haircut, and then send it to the idiot who keeps shutting down the haircuts and be like what you made me do.
He went from being a hippie that looked like, he had an afro to now he's getting to the point where he looks like Jesus.
But Jimmy, you're looking stylish as always.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I finally got my hair cut. I gotta go get it cut again. I think it's getting a little bit scraggly. My problem is every time I get cut, it gets grayer.
You didn't grow a beard,
No.
either of you.
I did, but I need to shave. My girlfriend hasn't yelled at me yet about not shaving, so I'm going to keep it.
Okay.
Oh my god. He needs to get a shave and a haircut.
I do. The only
We all
upside to wearing a mask is nobody can see my scraggy beard.
Jimmy, I watched your video about your new trailer yesterday. That thing is a
Oh,
beauty.
thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's for the size pickup that we have. It's right. It's perfect for it, because anything more, I think, would have been kind of pushing the transmission and everything on the pickup. But I think that size is going to be just right. And we took it to Coyote Lake, which has a really windy, hilly road going up to it, and it did handle it just fine. So if it'll take it there, it'll take it about anywhere, I think.
What's the name of that place? You post a lot of pictures from a national park, I think it was.
It's called Coyote Reservoir is what they call it. It's it's Santa Clara County Parks, so it's a county park instead of a state park.
Is that one of those forests that was on fire last year? Or?
I don't think the fire ever hit that area, but it came really close to it.
So the forest fires are like a summer thing?
Well, around here
There's no fires going on right now, or?
Yeah, right now we don't have anything going, but I imagine probably within the next few weeks we'll start our fire season up. It's just happening earlier and earlier in the year now.
What's the weather like right now? What's the temperature?
Yeah, right now right now it's I believe 50, probably about 53 degrees here right now. But during the day it's been getting close to 70. But I'd say within the next month we'll start hitting up into the 80s. And that's usually when we start seeing the fires start creeping up.
He forgot to convert it into metric units.
Oh,
so
sorry about
he's
that.
Confused.
Yeah.
9 degrees Celsius right now.
I have no idea what you just said.
They're predicting a high of 17 and a low of 5 is kind of the high and the low average for the week. So we'll see what happens.
Sorry, Daniel, I forgot.
Don't worry.
How dare you confuse the god of 3D printing like that? You horrible, horrible person.
Oh, really?
That's you're talking.
Get out, Jimmy. Get out.
That's I don't know who you're talking about, but it sure ain't me.
Man, I'm looking at your printers behind you. That's a nice collection you got.
Yeah.
Oh, is that's the one you were building the other day?
Oh yeah, it's the R30. But this is. Hold on. I shouldn't put this one on the floor really because this is. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna get this going one of these days.
Oh gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That is cool.
I don't even know how to get this running, but I think Calvin is. But
I think
Calvin,
we got somebody here knows.
You still got yours, right?
I still have mine, but it's sitting somewhere at either my parents' or my grandmother's garage, and I haven't honestly seen the thing in years. But I'd love to dig it out and do some prints on it, just to troll everybody on these 3D printing pages who thinks that the modern machines are just utter garbage. Pull out the Thingomatic, do a print on it, and just be like, "Guess what did this?" And then have them be all like, "Ah!" Just to prove the point that the old machines still could do stuff. But yeah.
What slicer are you using for it?
Actually, I was able to use Simplify 3D, and because it uses a binary file, I was actually able to export that. But if you want, I can send you my profile that I have in Simplify 3D, and you can go from there. I think you can also use Cura for it, but I was able to get it to work with Simplify, so that's what I've been using ever since.
What's the slicer that MakerBot has, their latest? I think it once upon a time it could use that slicer with a Thingomatic, right?
Yeah, back in the day you would use like Replicator G, I think it was, but that is like ancient technology, and it never would reliably give me any good G code, and it would literally take 5 minutes to slice a Marvin.
Yeah, and I don't think you didn't. There was never a preview of the print, right? That was like you did the code, send it to the machine, and hope for the best.
Exactly, and half the time the code would be all mucked up, didn't work. You'd have to start all over again. It was just like there went 10 minutes.
I remember the slicing took forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, took forever. But
so the other thing was this. You remember this?
Yes, the box that I swear they hate me.
Look at all those stamps. I sent this.
Oh my God.
I actually sent this to Calvin, and a few weeks later it just came back. So, and then I put it in a box, and I haven't touched it since. So I thought we could, open it and see what you never got.
Yeah, let's do that.
I honestly was like, did Daniel forget to send the package? Did it get lost? I just completely forgot about it because I was in the process of moving and all this other stuff, and it just blew my mind. But it went into the package black hole and never made it out.
At least it came back.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. At least it came back.
Because there are Thingomatic parts in here.
Yeah, those
and
things
a bunch
are
of
like
other stuff that I don't remember what it was, but
oh
boy,
but
maybe that's
Jimmy, you also have a nice printer collection behind you there.
Oh, thank you.
How many printers do you have these days?
Oh God. Well, let's see here. We got to separate Calvin's from mine. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think there's 14 now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I gotta start. I actually have taken a couple of them and regifted them to some of my friends and family, trying to kind of narrow down the collection a little bit. I've got a couple of them I need to work on. In fact, my Genius, I've got to redo the sensor on it. I'll probably just go with micro switches on it. Huh? Probably be the best thing to do.
I don't know.
It's got the induction. For some reason, the induction's not working right. I don't know if it's a connection on the board or what's going on. So I got to go through that and check it out. But with work and everything, I just haven't had time to sit down and look at everything.
So is there like a favorite or?
My absolute favorite is still the Artillery X1. That.
Whoa. You disappeared. I'm not sure what happened or if I'm just doing this live show on my own right now.
Something happened. We got kicked out for some reason. I think you better go out of the browsers.
Professionals.
It kicked me out, but let me back in finally. But yeah, with work and everything, I just haven't had time to really get into them and diagnose and fix a few of them.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I've got a few printers as well. I'm trying to remember. I've got the Moai, which I'm in the process of getting that set up and running again. I got the new Artillery Hornet, which just came in that I'm still doing some videos on. I got the Genius, which I jokingly call the baby Sidewinder because it's effectively a Sidewinder X1 shrunk down. I got my Sidewinder X1. I think I've got one A10M that never really got worked on. A friend of mine gave me her Ender 3 to kind of work on and either just part out or whatever I decide to do. Still figuring out what I'm going to do with that one. And
you got an Ultimaker, right? Or you used to have one?
I have an Ultimaker, but that one's with my parents still. I need to do something with it, but I'm kind of, don't get me wrong, it's a really, really good printer, but it's kind of like I've hit the point where it's like, do I really need to keep this, or am I better off just finding somebody who I know could actually make really good use of it? So I keep oscillating back and forth on it because it's my very first printer, so I'm sentimental in that aspect. But
it's an Ultimaker.
I know. But then on the other hand, it's like, do I really need to keep something that I haven't touched in like 4 years?
Yes, you do.
So it's one of those things. But and then I've also got the Hicktop D3 Hero, which is the IDEX machine, which I don't honestly use as much as I would like to, and I need to use.
Is it good?
More. It's decent.
Pretty good.
I mean, there's as with any printer, there's always things that are going to be a little about it, but for what it is, I personally like it. I just honestly, the biggest problem I have with using soluble supports is the amount of time that it takes. Even just removable supports is normally what would be a 2-hour print takes like 5 hours plus to print, and that's no guarantee it's going to finish, and that's not necessarily a fault of the machine. It's just if something goes wrong along the way, there's not a whole lot you can do. So you've pretty much you've doubled your potential for things to go wrong. So for me, it's still cheaper to pay a company in France to print my stuff for me and just ship it out. It's just easier and less stress that way. So it's not that it's a bad machine. It's just I haven't been able to figure out a good enough workflow for it to make it viable for what I'm trying to do at the moment. But I also just haven't had any time to mess around with it either. So that's partly my own fault.
So you have a company in France print stuff for you?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Sculpteo?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
What is it they
that?
print for you? Train stuff or?
Lots of train stuff. Lots and lots and lots of train stuff. The thing is, originally my friend and I were trying to do all of our train stuff, printing it in-house on the Moai, which was a great idea on paper because we're like, $1 in resin to print a cab and it takes 6 hours. Phew, yay, that's great. We can sell it for cheap and make a lot of money. It actually wasn't that simple. We had a lot of problems with, he didn't really know how to run the Moai very well, so we had a lot of accidents with that, a lot of failed prints, things weren't going right. it became such a headache to use it. I was just like, well, this isn't working if we're going to try and do a batch of like 100 of these. It's not working. So we ended up getting a couple of test prints done. And the other problem is resin, as you probably know, is pretty brittle. So at least the resins that we were using, the problem is if Scott dropped the model on the floor, literally a CAD that would take 8 hours to print would just shatter. I was like, well, there went 8 hours of print work. So that was a huge letdown as well. So when I finally got the test prints in, we could literally throw them at the wall and they just, nothing happened. It was like, okay, you know what? Let's just spend the money for somebody else to do the print work for us. Gave us more time to actually do R&D on the kits versus dinking around with the printer all day trying to get it to work right. So yeah, that's the main reason why we have them doing the prints is the reliability. And also the nice thing was before the pandemic hit, Sculpteo had an office over in Oakland, which is about half an hour from where I was at in San Francisco. So I occasionally just do local pickup because I could go in there, talk to the guys. They were always curious about the prints, the train stuff. They thought it was really, really cool, really thought it was interesting. And the nice thing was they were gracious enough. I believe it was Brandon was like the manager for the Oakland branch. He actually asked us, he goes, hey, is this surface quality, because we were having the prints polished, which is the tumbling method. He goes, is this quality good enough, or do you want to see if we can make this a little bit better? And I'm like, if you can, don't have the production guys killing themselves over it, but if they can make this a little bit smoother, he goes, yeah, I'll just put a note in on your order that says, please run these prints in the tumbler longer so they have a better surface finish. And that just sold me on the spot, was the fact that they were willing to work with us while we were still just doing small batches. They were willing to work with us to improve the quality of the prints. Was like perfect. And to this day, they still have that note on my file because the prints that I get in that are polished are a lot smoother than other people who get things printed. And to this day, I am forever grateful to Brandon and the guys over the production team for doing that. And I've told them, if you guys ever communicate with the production guys, please send them a huge thank you from me for taking the extra time on these, because it really, really, really makes a big difference. Like, I wanted them to make sure that they knew that their extra work was being appreciated. So that's what pretty much sold me on the spot on Sculpteo. Also, they tend to have a faster turnaround time and lower prices than Shapeways as well, which sounds strange, but that's just the way it is, which is really cool. So yeah, that's the long and the short behind why I use them.
I've seen you post a lot of photos on your model train stuff, and the models you do, they've really evolved the last years. I think they look really great.
Thanks.
So you sell those when they're printed, or?
Yeah. So what we do is we'll order. We'll just say, let's use an arbitrary number, 25. We'll just say we're going to do 25 of kit. We'll just say kit 1. And what we'll do is we'll usually get about 20 people to buy in initially. We'll send out the order for 25. And then when those come in, we'll sell those off. And then we'll save those extra 5 kits for either spare parts, custom builds that we're going to do, or later on, there's always that person that comes in going, you guys still got one of these around? Like 6 months later, somebody who didn't know about the initial sale, so we'll be able to sell off those. And also in case anybody, legitimately breaks something or a kit gets lost in transit or something, we have spare parts that we can part out as well. Usually we'll save the spares for iteration or custom builds or things like that. So yeah, that's what we'll do, is we'll just sell the finished product, because a kit is usually made up of multiple parts, and it's cheaper to get them done in batches of, say, 25, because we get a volume discount, than it is to just do one here, one there, one there. Because some of the parts are tiny, and they charge about a $7.50 minimum US for the prints, with a $15 minimum overall on the order. So it doesn't matter if the part's 10 centimeters long and it's $7.50. So what we'll do is we'll take a lot of tiny parts and I'll sprue them together so they're part of one larger assembly. Then that larger assembly gets shipped out to drop the price per part dramatically. So what would normally be a $7.50 print drops to, say, $2 because it's part of other parts. And the whole print might have cost $20, but across those 10 parts, each individual part costs less. So there's another way that buying in volume actually works out to be cheaper for us, if that makes sense.
Cool. So
Yeah.
you guys model everything in Fusion, or do you have something else you work with?
I'm still using Fusion because it's really the program that I'm the most native with, and it's the most affordable of out there. I know a friend of mine, he has a small company. I'll link to it in a minute in the chat, his Facebook page for it. He's cool because he actually designs all of his stuff in Tinkercad, but that's what he found the most easy to use. He tried Fusion, but some people have a more difficult time, I think, with starting out with nothing and working their way up. He finds it easier working with the primitives and going from there. But the models he makes, like I tell him, I'm like, hey, there's no shame in using Tinkercad. I'm like, honestly, the models that you make are a lot better than what people who are using Fusion and other programs are producing. And he's always like, I'm like, dude, it's night and day different. So it's like, there's no shame in using Tinkercad or Fusion or 123D or SketchUp or whatever, as long as you're making a good file at the end of the day. That's what matters. But I just find Fusion the easiest because I learned it years ago in school and stuck with it ever since.
Whatever floats your boat.
Bingo. Although I will say, and Jimmy could probably attest to this as well, there's benefits and trade-offs to Tinkercad. So yeah. It's all about finding that happy medium. But I will admit I have been using Tinkercad a bit lately to try and stitch together STLs that are like multiple part print flat files that you put together to try and create one solid file that I can then ship out to get printed. So it has its place for that, and for that I really like it.
So is there a web page where you sell these kits, or do you have like an Etsy store? Or?
We have a Facebook page. Let me link my friend's thing first, and then I will link to our page as well.
Daniel, when you designed your OpenRC project and all that, what program did you use to design all that?
The first one, the Truggy, I did in a software called Top Solid, which is pretty amazing. And after that, I quit my job and started working at Creative Tools, which is a 3D printing reseller and software as well. And then I had to switch, which, you know, when you're around 40, it's getting harder. So I had to switch to Fusion. And so just about anything else than the Truggy is designed in Fusion.
Wow.
Nice.
So do you have any new...
kind of a...
Go ahead.
Sorry? I was going to say that the F1 was the first project I did in Fusion. That was, you know, a larger project where I tried to, you know, learn the whole thing and put together, you know, larger assembly and stuff like that. So it was a good learning project for that, and everything else just, you know, happened after that.
Wow. And do you have any new projects coming out?
Not new, but I have the boat that I've been trying to finish for the last 3 years or something. Hold on, cool. I can show it. Hold on, it's behind the camera.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta see this. Oh, that'd be fun to print pictures.
Okay, let's see. It's a bunch of small parts here. Whoops. So this has actually been in the water just before winter.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh.
How many pieces does that print in?
This is one section, two section cut here, and up here. So that's like
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. It's pretty long.
That is amazing.
That is what? You have us speechless here, dude. That is awesome.
It's huge.
It is. I've been looking to get like an SLA printer to print the windows,
Yeah.
but I think
What-
you'll have to wait.
What are you using for a motor for that?
This is a brushless. I don't even know the specs, but it is too weak. Or not if you want to, like just take a slow ride and watch the scenery. But if you want some action, you probably need something bigger. But I mean, there's a lot of room in here for something bigger, so I don't think that's a problem. So that's
And, what
a
size
project
battery
I
are
really
you
wanna
using for
finish.
that?
Oh, sorry, what?
What size battery are you using for that?
I don't know. There's a bunch of lipos lying around, and
Nice.
I don't remember. I don't really have a good setup for this. I just threw something in there so I could test run it
Yeah.
before the last winter. So, but I think I'll get something proper setup this spring. Or it is spring right now, so it's getting need to get started, I guess.
So we're getting close to the release.
Man, I wish. I don't know how many times I've said I'm gonna release it soon, but that was I have some problems with steering and electronics, and I want to adapt the concept from the F1 that everything is dead simple.
Yeah.
And right now it's really complicated, so I have to rethink the whole assembly of the steering and all that. So it's I don't know. I have to put some time into that.
Well, you can always consider it the advanced series.
I mean,
Do you guys have a lake or something nearby you can use for a boat?
Yeah, over
Mercy
in
boats.
Monterey. In Monterey, they have that. It's across from the what's the name of that? Oh goodness! You know where
there's that-
Harbor? There's that Home Depot there in Seaside. Right across the street, there's a little lake there. That's actually a lot of people take the radio controlled boats out there.
Here's a thought, Daniel. I mean, it would be a much simpler boat in theory, but you've seen those airboats that they have like down in the south and whatnot. That would be an interesting, like, easier to build model because you could easily just build the little chassis from like one or two pieces. You got the fan mount. Maybe come up with a couple of different motor mount styles because there's different styles of brushless motors. And then you just have a little, a shroud for safety and just a rudder or two. And it's obviously it's a much, much simpler boat, but for somebody who wants to get into it easy, it's an option.
Yeah, but that thing's cool.
I didn't say that thing wasn't cool. I'm just saying if you want to make like a much simpler style of boat, an airboat, swamp boat, whatever you want to call it, is a much simpler viable option if you wanted to make that one more of like an advanced model and you want to have a much simpler open RC style anybody can build one model.
Yeah,
But
but
it's
that
also like I've already put in like gazillion hours on
Oh,
this
yeah.
one, so I need to finish it. And
Yes.
I know the feeling.
So it's
No offense to that model at all. Not at all. It's just if somebody wanted to make a much simpler one, that's the route to go. And I'm probably talking myself into a project here, knowing myself. I mean, I do have a
you
box of
can
RC
do, you
car
can do
parts.
that. I'm more interested in that.
I mean, my little
Also-
airboat will come along and save your boat.
it would be really cool to release a boat that actually floats.
versus one that sinks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like this one.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Now that you've got that belt printer, how would you be able to print the fuselage in one piece?
Hold on.
I don't know, but the thing is, it would probably take forever because it's so big.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the patience for to wait for the whole piece to finish. But
Yeah.
also another thing about this is I've tried to design everything so that I can, or me or anyone else, scale it down a bit or scale it up if you're Joel Talon.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about scaling it down and just finishing it at a smaller scale, and then whoever wants to scale it up can do that.
Yeah. That would be cool. I love that design. That's a really nice boat.
It is. I mean, the design itself is based on a Riva,
Yeah.
Italian boat brand. So for those who doesn't know, this is like an old wooden boat from 60s or something, perhaps.
Yeah.
Italian design. I mean, and the more time I spend with this in Fusion, I mean, we have these awesome computer softwares. The respect I have for boat builders back in the day, I mean, that's just crazy how they can finish a form like that and make several and make drawings, and that's amazing.
Yeah, they did everything by hand. It's just amazing how they did it.
And I can barely do it, even though I have a software to do all the work for me.
Yeah. Man.
I just found on Thingiverse somebody made a radio controlled version of a Banshee, like a radio controlled boat.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I posted that in the chat. I have now found myself a project I do not need to do, but I totally have to do just for coolness factor. Build a stinking RC Banshee.
Have you seen the life-size Banshee?
What's that?
Have you seen the life-size Banshee?
No.
That was a
yeah.
university where they actually took it out on the water. I'll just have a quick look, but I don't think I have it on this computer.
Because I've seen the Banshee get scaled up big time before.
But not super big, right? I think the biggest one printed in one piece, it's like something like this, I think.
Wow.
I haven't seen a huge one yet.
Yes.
Imagine somebody's working on it.
And the smallest one is like you have to use a microscope to see it.
Really?
Yeah, you haven't seen
Was
it.
Was it on a resin
you're not
printer?
You're not keeping up with the whole Banshee movement thing.
I haven't been able to keep up on much of anything.
I don't have the link here, but I think actually I have to maybe do a page on my website with smallest, biggest, weirdest, funnest. Oh, and this one, I got this one from a company here in Sweden. Have you seen this?
Oh, wow.
It's
That is cool.
full color print in I don't know. It's a Stratasys J70 50. I don't know.
Is that like the plastered based sandstone it looks like?
No, this is like an inkjet printer technology. I think they were called, like, the company was Object, I think, before, and Stratasys bought them. I think that's the.
Is it really
this is-
heavy or is it somewhat lightweight?
It's not like the sandstone. What are those printers called?
Yeah,
They
the plasterish ones.
This is one of those where you dip the print in epoxy, and
Right, yeah. Yeah, you put. I think
Autofocus
it's a
doesn't work,
super
but
glue.
and this
Yeah,
has
okay.
like a sandy texture to it,
Hmm.
and
I
this is
wonder.
really smooth.
I wonder if it's polyjet printed. It probably is.
Yeah,
It's probably the
that's probably the name, I think.
Yeah, it's probably polyjet if it's smooth and it's got multicolor because you can spray out different colors of epoxies if it has the inkjet head. Because it's definitely not MJF or SLS.
Hmm.
That is cool.
It looks really nice though.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, just coming at it from a design standpoint, being able to do, even if it's not a true full color print, being able to do something like that with color is really nice for product prototyping and whatnot. Very quickly go, hey, here's what a couple of things will look like, and get very quick user feedback without having to spend hours finishing a model. That's really cool.
I think I've seen some really crazy prints done with that printer where they have like an entire head and it's see-through and you have all the veins and the brain and stuff visible.
Yeah,
And they did the flask with a boat in it. What do you call it? Like an old ship
in a bottle.
Yeah, ship in a bottle. I think those are crazy expensive though. The prints themselves are really expensive.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just speaking from experience, yeah, those kinds of prints are expensive, but if you're willing to fork over the money, it's still cheaper than getting a prototype produced with like an injection mold or something like that that might never get used again or very limited run. So yeah, it might be expensive, but it's still cheaper than other methods.
Jim, you also got an SLA or a DLP, right?
Yeah, I've got what's that one called? The one that
Iligu?
Iligu, yeah.
I think it's a Mars. I can't remember.
Yeah. In fact, the screen for it went out, so we got a replacement, but it's not working. So I got to get hold of them and find out what screen I need for it.
The problem is it's a very, very, very early model, and based on my research, they made a couple of different iterations of the screen designs because obviously different manufacturers and probably things like that. So it kind of makes it when I say it makes it an obsolete item, it's one of those things where it's like you might have to just upgrade the motherboard and the screen to get it, but we'll see.
Might as well replace the printer.
Yeah. At that point, just give it to somebody for parts.
Pretty much. What is your go-to printer now?
Probably the 6 over there.
Really?
That one? Yeah. But I don't think, no, I don't have, I use them all actually. There's not like one I, not right now. Although I do have my Replicator 2X down there. You can't see it because there's a name, my name tag is in the way. But that printer is actually still really good.
Really?
Yeah. And one of those things that's, you know, it's a great thing with the new printers where they, you know, auto calibrate and stuff. But that one, you know, starting a print and just manually level the plate, that's just something special.
Yeah.
You can get it really perfect.
Get that first layer pouring going down really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to agree with you though 100% on just being able to get in there and twist the stupid knobs versus trying to spend hours with fine-tuning offsets and all that crap. It's just like, no.
Yeah.
My one biggest complaint with people coming in is they seem to think that if they attach a probe to their printer, it's going to solve all their problems. And I'm like, no, believe me, six weeks from now, you're going to be the person going, I should have never installed a probe on my printer. It has created more headache than it was worth. And everybody in the comments can go, you did it wrong. It's like, no. I helped a friend. I helped Ashley set up a probe on her printer, and she can back it up in the chat. It caused more problems than it ever solved. We ended up reverting back to the original, and no cares in the world. I mean, there are examples where if it comes pre-installed and it's been set up right, it can be helpful. But even then, it's kind of a band-aid fix for a problem that wasn't even there, in my opinion. So,
But most of
whatever.
the new printers, like the Creality printers and Artillery and all that, they have automatic build plate leveling, or
The artilleries don't. They have the capability to add on a DL touch if you want, but that's you doing it yourself. You have to put on your own firmware. The new Hornet actually, it's when I say I don't think it's necessary, but it's nice. The new Hornet has a 32-bit board. It also has 9-point Marlin bed leveling built in, but it's only a 235 millimeter build, 235 by 235 for the build plate. So it's kind of at that size where it's like it's not really necessary, but it's a nice touch. So, it's nice that they have that though, in case you do decide to print something where you need to put a surface on top of it that might not be very flat. But for general use, it's not needed. But for something like the X1, which I believe is what, 300 by 300?
Yeah.
Something 300 by 300 or more, you really start to notice bed unlevelness. And yeah, for that, having mesh bed leveling makes more sense. But even then, if you know what you're doing with setting up your first layer, you can get away without it.
So that the one that behind you there, that I think you said is a 6. What brand is that one?
that one.
Yeah.
It's a 6 ZYYX,
Is that okay?
and it's called 6 Pro, and it's got a heated build volume. Yeah.
Oh wow!
To
So you can do
print like
ABS
nylons
and everything
and
else
stuff.
in it.
Yeah, but I almost exclusively print, nylon with some carbon fiber in it because it's such a nice material to work with, and it
Yeah.
works really well in that printer. So I like it a lot. But I think that not a go-to printer perhaps, but this is so weird. The CR30.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a new favorite since like yesterday when I unboxed it, because it's once again, I mean, it's been a few years since I bought the Thingomatic, but once again, I can find myself, just watching it, and just right now, I'm just printing some random thing on the SD card.
Yeah.
It's, totally useless, but it's fun to have it running and just look at it because it's fascinating.
So when are you going to print a sword on it? Nice long.
He's got the wall full of filament ready to go.
No, there won't be a sword, not yet anyway, but I got another couple of projects, and they're all about, printing a lot of pieces. I just want to have it running and like a bucket in front of it, so it just drops all the pieces. Yeah, in there. That's actually something I've been wanting to do even, since I got the Thingomatic with the, I think what did they call it, Calvin? Automatic build plate, no?
Yeah, an automatic build plate, an automatic print bed, I think it was. The little belt thing that was...
Yeah.
Some people had luck with it, some people didn't, but it was an idea ahead of its time, regardless.
I think it was a pretty cool idea, and if I had gotten that printer today, I would probably have been able to manage it better than I did. But, at that time, I was totally new to this and not great. But also, I mean, at that time, you build a printer out of 1 million screws and nuts and stuff. And when it just, I got it to extrude, that was a win. I didn't even print anything. It just extruded plastic, and I'm like, holy crap, this is so cool. So seeing people today, like reviewing printers, and they're actually pretty decent, but it sucks. It's not great. It's this and that, and it's expensive, and it's not good. And I mean, dude, it's great, and it's not expensive. A couple of $100 compared to buying the 2X with, I don't know. I'm not even gonna say what that cost. And the MakerBot spools, that was like $50 a spool for a kilo, and damn.
Yeah, I mean, I do get on people a little bit when they start complaining about things, and I'm like, you seriously do not know how good you have it compared to when we got into this. And I genuinely mean it. And it genuinely irritates me because it's like you're complaining about things that we had to slog through to get to this point where you can complain about minor issues. I understand they don't fully understand what we had to go through, but at the same time, it's kind of like, look, before you start complaining about things, go back 5 years and see the problems we were having. Like we were talking about replicator G taking 10 minutes to spit out some halfway okay G code that might work if you're lucky. And it's just like, yeah, I understand people wanting to push the envelope of what's good and what's not, but at the same time, you have to look at where we came from to where we're at. And you've hit the point where you might be able to get a little bit better, but it's not going to make a gigantic difference at the end of the day. My main thing is more safety related, with companies knowing the right way to do things and not doing that and causing problems, and people either totally picking on things that don't need to be picked on or totally overlooking things that should get dealt with. And it just kind of turns into who's really right and not, and safety. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other stream at a later time. But yeah,
And
no,
also
it's
yeah, you go ahead.
no. I was done with what I was saying. You can go on.
The Thing-O-Matic and the Cupcake and those, they didn't even have acceleration either. You remember that?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So
Literally.
I mean, that's really interesting. Printing stuff with you know, the you could
Gotta
only
get
go
print
like
speed.
30 maybe millimeters a
If you were-
second for speed.
If you were really ballsy, you did 30 on average. You did about 15 to 20 to get an okay print, so it wasn't skipping steps too much. But yeah, I mean, it's like I look at the Hornet with the 32-bit board and just watching that thing just smoothly accelerating and decelerating because it's got that look-ahead capability is just, it's crazy. Comparing it to other machines, how it can, do all that stuff, it's just like, wow. But yeah, it's come a long ways.
Yeah, Daniel, Rover's got a question.
Yeah.
He's asking about your Delta printer. Which one is it,
Yeah.
and what's your opinion on it?
That is, hold on. That's a Semi CNC Rostock V4.
Ooh.
And I've been wanting a Delta for quite some time because they're fascinating. That's kind of like the CR30. I can just watch it because it's fascinating to watch the movements.
Yeah.
So it's a great printer. I like it a lot and I use it all the time. So I guess it's good, I guess.
Awesome.
But I really love that, watching that, and anyone that comes in here also is really fascinated because it's, the whole design is really interesting, I think. And I mean, it produces good prints too, so, and it's pretty fast. And
That's
I was
one thing
going, yeah, I've been wanting that for a long time, so it's pretty cool to have one, and it's really nice as well to be able to print taller
That
things
is-
as well. So and I mean, going back to the old days when we didn't have acceleration, and then I think his name was Dan Newman, and there's the other guy that I don't remember. They released the Sailfish firmware.
I
Did you
remember
try
that.
that, Calvin? Yeah,
I
and they
actually have
introduced acceleration. I think also MakerBot used their firmware later for their replicators machines, I think. And that was this big craze when that came along, and everyone was gonna, print as fast as humanly possible. That was like, and
they
you
were
couldn't
probably-
even, people were hanging out on G Plus in those days, and you couldn't even, I mean, you couldn't say that I print stuff at 50 millimeters a second or something, because people were like, nobody prints that slow.
Back in the
These
day,
days,
that was
I
crazy.
feel I feel nobody cares. I mean, if you get a good result, speed doesn't really matter. People doesn't even ask about it.
Yeah.
Barely.
No, and I intentionally withhold from generally saying the speeds that I print at because the problem is I tend to print on the slower side. I range from about 45 to 80, but then usually I've got slowing down for perimeters and bridging, and we all know the fine tuning that goes into stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like I always tell people I would much rather print a little bit slower, have my print take a little bit longer, but no, I'm not going to come in, especially when I was doing and am doing prints for classmates where it is time critical and there's a grade hanging on their print getting done. You know, it's a big responsibility to take on.
Yeah.
I'd much rather it take an extra hour on a 12-hour print to print it a little slower, a little bit safer, than try and whip the thing out an hour sooner and hour 10 into a 12-hour print. The thing has a massive spaghetti-o fit, and then I got to start all over and I burn 12 hours.
Like that.
Exactly. That's an extreme example, but we all know what it's like when you're nearing the end of a print and you're just pushing it to go a little faster and something went wrong. On long prints that are time critical or material critical or both, I'd much rather err on the side of a little bit longer and have it finish than try and push it and wreck it in the last lap.
So you guys know my friend Anton, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we had a speedboat challenge, and that is what this is all about. You should print a 3D benchy the fastest, you know, with just the basic settings, you know, temperature, speed, etc. And this is 27 minutes. And yeah. So Anton, of course, 26 minutes. And this is the best I could get.
Wow.
It's not great, but I mean, it still holds together. So, I mean, that's something. But
Yeah.
I think the record, I think, is 6 minutes to print an entire benchy, you know, like this.
Really?
On an FDM printer. Yeah. That's just ridiculously fast.
So
And
Daniel,
it's decent too.
I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing to say, but your 26-minute benchy looks better than 3/4 of the beginner benches I see with people taking an hour. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that, for being printed as fast as it was, that's not bad at all.
I think if you could get a little more. The problem is the front end, you know, it's not able to cool it fast enough, so it warps up and gets stuck. I wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see this, but here's the smallest benches I got. That
Oh wow.
it's not. Yeah, you can't even see it, but it's tiny anyway.
Oh my gosh. That is epic.
Let's see if I have any other fun stuff. No. Nope.
I got something fun around here somewhere.
Oh yeah. Oh, TK was asking about that.
Oh, is that the magnet? Holy crap! What? That's
I need
huge.
to put
What's
the can in it.
what can are you putting in that?
This one
is it
was
scaled
what,
up,
for
or-
like a 7-Up can or Coke can.
Oh, really? Can
Yeah.
you just hold it so I can see? Okay. Cool. Have you ever used it?
Yeah, I have.
There's been a couple of times where he's like, and now you're going to drink out of the head of Daniel Noree. I love drinking Diet Coke from the head of God of 3D printing or whatever the heck. Or I like drinking Coke from the head of my enemies or whatever fun.
That was one of those
Fine.
fun prints, and it was just fun to do.
That is completely normal.
That was TK that did that one.
I feel like I need to
That
print
is-
one in the video when I'm doing a bench. I just need to casually drink Dr. Pepper out of the thing just to see if anybody gets it.
Dr. Pepper, best drink ever.
Yes.
Yes, it
But-
is.
That thing is a few years old, I think, isn't it?
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it is.
At least.
You know, we did a Bitchy just the other day by cats. I don't see what happened to it.
Sacrilege.
Remember the one that failed and then it continued on anyway?
Wait. I think it's over here somewhere.
I know it got around to somewhere.
Yeah, it's right here. There it is.
Oh yeah, there we go. So we unboxed the.
Hornet.
It was the artillery Hornet, and this was the Benchy that we did on that one, and it failed
Oh,
right at that point, and then
It
it
failed.
recovered and it kept on going.
Wait, let me get it.
Yeah, if you want to take it closer, go for it. Yeah.
that's a pretty good recovery, though.
Yeah, I was surprised it even recovered.
But the bow turned out really good.
You gotta raise it up a little
What
higher.
filament? What filament is that?
That was the G-Tech copper. G-Tech copper silk, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a problem right there on the bow of it. But other than that, I mean, other than the failure, of course. But yeah, that well, you know, one thing I've noticed with the artillery printers, I'm not getting the Z hop. Like usually, whenever I do retraction, I'll do a Z hop.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's not doing it with those printers. I don't know what the story is. If it's in Cura, or something's not getting translated correctly in the G code.
I mean, what I would do is I would actually set the Z-hop to be like a ridiculously high number, like 1 millimeter, so you can see if it's
Yeah.
actually just as a test, so you can actually see if it's doing it or not. Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah, because that's what caused that, because it just came over and it knocked off the pillar.
Yeah.
But
Are you using Cura or Simplify 3D mostly, or?
I use Cura myself. I haven't brought myself to spend that $150.
At this point, I don't know. I've had Simplify 3D from like my second year of 3D printing when I was doing a lot of print for hire work, and I needed the custom supports that Simplify 3D did. And I still use it just because it's never given me problems. I could switch to Cura if I had to, but my biggest gripe with Cura is it feels like they're like Facebook. They just keep coming out with new features and updates and widgets and doodads, but they didn't solve the initial problems that you had with the software. And that to me is really frustrating because, you know, they might fix one bug, but then there's 5 other bugs to get in there. And then they add all these other features. And it's like, unless you go in there and you check, like turn on every single feature, there's times where it will override a temperature setting because there was some other temperature setting in there that had superiority over the one that you put in. And I'm just like, I don't need nor want this. I said to print at 220 at layer 5. You print at 220 on layer 5. You don't magically change it to 180 for some unforeseen reason. So that's the biggest complaint with Cura. But if I had to switch to it, I would. But I just use Simplify 3D because I can use it literally in my sleep. And I think the UI is better, but that's partly just because I've used it for so long. So
Which slicer do you prefer?
I use both Cura and Simplify, but I usually try to use Simplify because I like the UI better.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for me, at least, to work with. And I mean, they're coming up with this big release that I've been talking about for the last couple of years.
Oh, really?
You haven't
We'll
seen
see
that?
No, I
That's
haven't.
like the best. That is like the funniest thing ever. They talk about, we've got a big release coming up, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Last time was this fall, and they were like, oh, we're working hard on this update, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, okay, so when?
Yeah.
And it's never coming, and everyone's upset.
honestly, I mean, the thing is, there's always besides should I put a BL Touch on my printer and what upgrade should I do before I even have the printer at my doors, what's the best slicer out there? And I constantly tell people it's whatever slicer you, one, feel most comfortable with, and two, you get the settings dialed in on. And the people always ask, which one do I use? And I always say, I use Simplify 3D, but I've used it forever, and I feel like I've got my money's out of it. But I'm not saying that if you spent $150 on it, you're going to feel like you got your $150 worth out of it. So I always preface that in there because people think that, oh, if I just buy Simplify 3D, I'm going to solve all my problems. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. But, you know, everybody's different. But a lot of the thing that is a little bit frustrating is how it seems like everybody in the community has really started trolling Simplify 3D over issues that it has that they probably should have dealt with. But at the same time, it's like, look, trolling them about it is not going to make them fix it anymore. It got so bad, Simplify 3D actually turned off commenting on Twitter about things. And now you have to retweet things to comment about it. And even then, people are still doing it. And I just got in there and pretty much told everybody off. I'm like, look, harassing Simplify 3D is not going to make things happen. Why don't you actually reach out to them and see if they want some help? Why don't you actually be nice to them and, you know, not be so antagonistic about it? Because if you just keep that up, they don't care. They're probably paying some social media person on Fiverr to post this anyways. They don't know how to deal with this stuff. It's like, just move on from it. There's bigger fish to fry, in my opinion. But I would love to see another update come out. But at the same time, if it's not going to offer anything that's that spectacular, then maybe it's better that they don't, so they don't end up doing a cure and releasing something that's half baked and then has more issues that never get solved. That's my only fear.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I don't know how I really feel. I would just hate to see them make some big announcement on some big release, and then it's like Windows 10, where it's just like crash update after crash update after crash update, and then 5 years later they get it fixed. That ain't good PR right there.
Yeah.
That's my only concern if they did one.
I think if they release an update, I'm sure it will be great.
Yeah.
I just feel like whatever, I mean, if I use Simplify 3D or if I use Cura, I always feel it gets the job done. Just,
right.
You know, so it's nice to have features that make your life easier. And I mean, that's always welcome. And if you can get something that, you know, gets better quality or whatever, but it works. So
yeah.
If they release something, that'll be exciting to see. But until then, it's not like I'm losing any sleep over it.
Neither am I, no. I mean, I like to equate it to, I drive a 1996 Honda Civic DX two-door with, except for a nicer radio faceplate, an aftermarket air conditioning unit, and some alloy wheels, all of which came with the car. It's a bare bones 4-cylinder car with manual door locks, manual everything, minus the fact that I have to go outside and crank the engine over by hand. Thankfully, they were nice enough to include an electric starter for it. But the thing I like about it is I know every single time I get into that car and I crank it over, unless the battery's dead, it's going to turn on and it's going to get me from A to B reliably. It's no frills, it's not fancy, but it's taken me and friends tons of places without issues, and I kind of see that with the slicers. Sure, this slicer might not have every single bell and whistle that you need, but do you really need 30,000 settings that you're never going to use that just clog it up and drag it down? I'd much rather have simplicity that's reliable over fanciness that's more of a headache. But that's just probably my European side speaking here.
Talking about cars and driving around in cars, even since I don't know if this was like when it was, but you were driving around Maker's Muse in your car.
Yeah, that was the Civic.
I've always thought, like, since then I also want to get a tour of San Francisco with Calvin. So next time I come, maybe we can make that happen.
We'll
we need
happen.
to make this happen.
The funny thing, though, is actually for most of that, the way it worked was I drove about half an hour from my grandmother's old house down to the hotel to pick them up. threw his bags in the car, went over to Grandma's house. She met him, thought he was the greatest thing ever to walk through the front door. Oh, everybody who met him wanted to keep him. I'm like, guys, we have to send him back to Australia later today. Okay, I'm sorry. So
even my wife was like, he's so cute.
Can I keep him?
She met him over at Maker Fair, and she's like, Angus is so cute. Like, Beth, you're going home with me. You're not going home with him.
So what happened is we went over to the house, and then if I recall correctly, I remember I had a final in a math class that day. So I think what we did is we dropped his bags off at the house, said hi to Grandma, went down the street to my favorite little corner market to get some food, ran over to school. I took my final and I logged him into the school Wi-Fi. I was like, here, just make yourself busy. So then I sent him a message like about half an hour later that I was done. We get back in the car, get some food, go back to the house, and then because getting around San Francisco, you can drive around there, but parking is a real nightmare, especially in the touristy spots. So what I did is we just walked like the 10 minutes from the house to the subway station, got him a day pass, ran all over the city, had an absolute blast, and then we got some more food at the little corner market walking home, and walking back up the hills when he realizes, man, that place is close to the house. No wonder you go there all the time. I'm like, dude, that place is a deal. People are nice. The food's really good. He goes, oh, man, this is so good. The poor guy was like super hungover, really exhausted. It had been like 2 weeks nonstop of traveling for him. He did like 1 or 2 trade shows out in Australia, jumped like a 12-hour plus flight out to here. Everybody was taking him out to wine and dine.
I think it says 23 hours on that flight.
Yeah. Everybody was whining and dining him until late in the night, so we really didn't have time to actually like get any decent rest and get any decent food in him. So finally when he got to me, I just had this shell of a person, and I felt so bad for him. But he was a trooper, and it's funny because he got this like avocado and cheese sandwich on whole wheat bread from the corner market. And I swear, after he ate that thing, he really perked up. So every time I would go there, I would jokingly tweet out, "Oh, I'm getting the Angus today." But we did a lot of really fun stuff, and he was genuinely appreciative at the end of it, because otherwise, he goes, honestly, if you hadn't taken the time to show me around the city, he goes, quite honestly, I don't think I would have wanted to come back to California or even just the United States in general, because he never really got to experience anything fun, because it was like nonstop, do this, do this, do this, do this. So he really he really got to just actually play tourist, even if it was for like 6 hours, and he really appreciated that. And that was a genuinely fun time just showing him around, because when you live somewhere, you sometimes go and do the touristy things, but it's just not the same as if you're going and doing it with someone. So that was fun, but I hate to say it, but San Francisco's kind of gone over the last few years, but there's still really good things to see and do out there. So it's not the whole city's gone to total dump. There's still good areas, because I still go up there every couple of months to go pick up my mail, hit up my favorite corner market, drop stuff off with old classmates and stuff. And there's good and bad about it, but there's still pockets of like what San Francisco was. So as somebody who's lived there for a while and seen it kind of going up and down, it's sad in some senses, but in other senses it's like, well, it was bound to happen. But I'm curious to see what San Francisco will be like post-pandemic, being that a lot of the tech companies are like, well, we could just have people coding online. We don't need them coming into the office. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in the next few years with the housing market and just the city in general.
Well, one thing about if you decide to come out to California, you let us know, and we'll make sure we take you all around and take you anywhere you want to go.
Dang straight.
We'll show you around the state.
We'll take Taco Tuesday to the Taco Club.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll get you
I look forward to it. Not sure when that will happen though, but when we can travel safely again. I don't know when. Maybe next year. Who knows?
I'm hoping everything straightens out by next year.
I think it will by then.
How's the pandemic affected you?
I live in a town that heavily relies on tourism, so not great, but we're all getting by pretty decent. So I'm not complaining. I think I mean, during this time, it's been kind of nice being away from the big city. You don't have
Yeah.
to go to the, subway station and have to go to work and spend a lot of time around other people. So that's been pretty good, and we can just, go out in the nature and enjoy the weather and skiing and stuff when nobody's around. So that's been pretty good. But it's been over a year since I last met my parents and my brother and his kids, and so that's kind of getting really. I want to see them again. It's been a long
Right.
time, and yeah, so that sucks. But on the other hand, I haven't since the last year I have kids and they have kids, and so my parents and my brother and his son, we all play, car games or whatever online together. So that's
Yeah.
been really fun. So, there's a good side to anything, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Well, at least
But,
it's
yeah.
good that you guys, even if you can't be in person, you still found ways to, stay connected. And that's, I think, the one upside to all of this is we've kind of figured out that it's like, hey, I mean, if we can't be together physically, there's still ways that we can, as best possible, stay connected and stay together, which is really nice. Although you definitely, it's just not the same doing things like this over a video call versus doing it in person. But
Right.
it's the next best thing to doing it in person.
Yeah.
So that's, but that's good to hear though, because obviously it's like different
Yeah, like you
areas.
said, I mean,
people-
it's amazing with the technology and everything we have available, for video and stuff like that. But it's hard to sometimes you just want to like have a cup of coffee, in person.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
there's so much else to a conversation than just having a chat. There's the body language and all that you get in real life more than in front of a camera. So
Oh, for sure. I mean, before we went on spring break, the school shut down, and we've been online since. And I had to miss a semester because they couldn't get enough people to teach online. So that really threw things for a loop with me. But I can tell you for a fact, doing online school, it's not the same. It's like earlier today, I was trying to explain to my instructor my project. She just couldn't understand. So I told her, I'm like, hey, it's up to you. But if you want to give me an address I can send my prototypes to, feel free. It's totally up to you. No pressure. She goes, yeah, that would actually help. So we're finding ways to work around it, but it's hard because something that I could explain in 5 minutes by bringing the item into class, now I got to spend a day or two to ship it up to her. And I think at that point it'll make more sense. But at the same time, it's just, it's frustrating because school still has the balls to charge us full rate for effectively the word on the street is, they haven't announced it officially, but the word on the street is we're probably not going to do any kind of even limited in-person instruction, which really sucks because it's just, it's wearing away all of us, and it's frustrating, but what are you going to do?
True.
Yeah. So
are all the lower grades also doing homeschooling, or is it just the
It's been all the grades. They've just barely started allowing the primary school, first through like fifth and sixth grade, started allowing them to go to school. But as far as high school and college, they're still not letting them in person.
There's limited exceptions though, because one of my friends, Danielle, she's taking her master's in physical therapy, and they've been doing in person, but it's with extreme restrictions. Everybody gets temp checked. If anybody tests positive or comes into a positive case, everybody's got to go get tested for it.
Yeah.
They're trying to push everybody to get the shot once it's available, so that way they can reduce the risk, because they have to go into hospitals and clinics and do in-person training. So they're an exception, But even then, the amount of in-person stuff they're doing is drastically cut back from what it was before. So legally, they have to do a certain number of in-person hours, but it's been really restricted. So the school's been trying to work with all the licensing boards to kind of figure out what's an acceptable temporary, we're going to waive this rule and allow this rule to make things work so they can still get through it. But it really is, it's not easy for anybody, because obviously the school administration's having a hard time. The licensing board is like, we can't really do this. That's the best I can put it. That's what I've been relayed. But even then, it's very much, nobody really knows. So, yeah.
But the vaccination rate seems to be at a pretty good pace in the U.S.
Yeah, they're doing pretty good on it, and now they're starting to lower the age restrictions more and more. I think California's going down to 16 years old?
Seen with parent or guardian permission.
Yeah.
And as it is, I don't live in the same county that I work in, but the county that I work in just opened up for anybody who works in the county to get the shot. So I actually am going in Friday morning before I head into work to get my first shot, which is good, because I was wondering if school was going to open up a vaccination site first, but that would have been about an hour and a half drive away for me. I'd do it if I had to, but I was kind of like, if I can avoid it. So when work sent out an email and was like, look, the county just opened it up for anybody who works in the county to go ahead and get a shot, which is actually ahead of schedule, because they actually were getting enough people through that they were able to do that, which was really nice. I was able to land a spot pretty early on. So I'm like, you know what, let me just knock it out, because, and I think it's June, I'm going to be doing a railroad camp thing. And I figured being a lot of the volunteers over there are 65 plus for their own peace of mind, and just for my own peace of mind, I'm like, you know what, let me just go ahead and get this knocked out now. My grandmother's gotten her shot. My mom's gotten her shot. I know, like, my grandmother feel a lot better when I do go and see her. So I'm figuring, you know what, I'm not necessarily doing it for me, doing it for the greater good of those around me. So, you know, I might not 100% be on board with it for reasons I won't get into here, but nothing conspiracy theory wise, but just, I'm like, you know what, it's time to just suck up and do what needs to be done.
Put your big boy pants on and do it.
Yeah. I'm not getting shots or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. It's just, there's always the risk, there's always the fear of the unknown, but at the same time, it's like, you know what, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. If something's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. It's just the risk you take living. I mean, I could get into a car wreck driving to the vaccination site for all I know, and that's the end of me. So I just try and not worry about it, but, you know, it is what it is.
How close do you guys live to each other?
He's staying with me right now.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Literally, I could throw my shoe and hit where he's at if I wanted to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is your bed under the desk there, or?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I sleep in the crawl space underneath his bedroom.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he's been staying here now for the last few months, just kind of between here and his parents' place. But figure it's better than him having to go and spend the money renting a place up in San Francisco and
To just do class
just be able to do everything online anyway.
And now he has
So
an
will there be more regular live streams then, or?
We're hoping so. It's just a matter of when I get to have time off from work. Like this week, I'm on vacation this week, but like next week, I'll be closing almost all week. So, well, hopefully, I think I've got a couple of days off where we can do a live stream next week.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, by the time I get off work and drive back, it's usually pushing about 8:30 our time. So obviously, if he has to get up early to go to work the next morning, that's not necessarily a easy thing to do. But you know, there's some flexibility in there. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not a huge live streaming guy, but I feel more comfortable doing it with somebody else. And I'm slowly getting used to it, but it's like when you have to do live streaming for class, it's kind of like, you're going to go do it.
I like doing live streams more than I like recording videos.
I'm the opposite. I am the exact opposite. But the nice thing is now he has a resident video editor, so that does help. Because somebody does not like sitting with his own footage listening to himself talk. He just, and I get it.
Is it a little bit like Batman and Robin, perhaps? Jimmy's Batman and you're Robin, or?
It's probably the other way around.
Something like that. I don't know.
Golly gee, Batman.
You can have that old Batman theme, yeah, as a theme song.
Batman.
Careful, they might demonetize the stream for that.
Oh, are you still?
What do you say? Should we unbox this thing or?
Yeah, let's see it.
Anyway. Yeah.
It's
probably not.
I gotta head to bed in a bit, but.
Oh, it's
yeah,
already...
just there.
I wonder how many stamps there are here. There are like a lot. Look, nicely packaged.
Nice.
By myself.
Give yourself a round of applause for doing such a good job.
Okay, so this is just boring stuff. This is a lot of marketing stuff.
Oh, nice.
These are to wipe the lens or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's valuable.
A bunch of notebooks.
Oh, very valuable.
Some Benchy
Very valuable.
Benchy cards. They have a, I don't know what you call it, like a scale here, so you can measure things.
Oh my god.
Great tool.
That's cool.
And this is the belt, I think.
Oh.
Transparent belt.
Nice.
And here are all the parts. Here it is.
Oh my
Build
god.
plate. Automated build platform.
Oh man. I gotta seriously,
Dude.
if you need some Krona to send that thing over, I will be glad to send you a few, because I need to find out where it's at, but I would love to try and get the APB put together and operational if possible, because man, that would be so cool.
I think all the parts it's modded to have, I don't know if you ever made one of these. This is like a quick release thing. It's hard to see it through the plastic, but you printed a piece, mounted it to the actual, carriage.
Yeah.
And there's this little thing and you can just lift it off.
I've seen that on Thingiverse before, yeah.
But here is like a bunch of all the parts I have basically. And here's the wooden
Oh my gosh.
part. And I think a spare heat bed.
Wow.
So Ashley was wondering, actually, it never made it for some reason. It kept getting sent back.
Yeah.
They didn't want the awesomeness to leave
More-
Sweden.
And some other marketing stuff.
Oh man.
Boring. And actually
Boring.
a mug.
Yeah, that's boring, Daniel. Nobody needs to see the mug. Next. I'm
That
just
is cool.
kidding. I'm kidding.
That's actually it.
That is awesome. Well, if you want, I can send you my current address.
Nah, I think I'm gonna keep it. I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Daniel. Have a good one.
No, but send your address and I can send it over.
Okay.
It would be fun to see it working.
Oh, same here. Totally the same here. I mean, I'm just glad that it made it back. That's the big thing.
Yeah. I mean, in a couple of years, this will probably be worth nothing.
Yeah. It won't be worth the stamps that were used instead.
Could you do me a huge favor? And if you send it, could you include something autographed for me?
I guess I could.
Box while he's at it.
Please.
A signed Banshee.
That would be awesome.
Anything Daniel Noree, he will take. A bottle of your pee, some of the air. It doesn't matter. He'll take it.
A used T-shirt, not washed.
Oh God. We won't go that far.
Quick, drink some coffee out of the mug. Don't wash it out. Put it in the box and send it. There we go.
I'll send it. Sure.
Okay.
So, are you still working over there at the resort, or?
Yeah and no.
Yeah.
It's the pandemic, so no, not really. A little, but not as much as I would have. But it is what it is. So.
Yeah.
At least, I get to go ski with barely no one else in the slopes. So that's been pretty nice.
That's a good thing.
I'm jealous.
Definitely, yeah.
Man.
Do you guys have any mountains nearby, or?
Our mountains are not very tall. That's where we're at right now. I think their tallest one is what, 3,000 feet?
Something like that.
We live almost sea level.
Yeah, but if you go by car like 8 hours or something,
Oh yeah,
you can get up to the mountains. Yeah.
yeah. We can get up to what's that? Lake Tahoe.
Tahoe's only like 4 to 5 hours if you're depending on the route you take. The south of Tahoe, I'll send you the link to it, is somewhere called El Dorado National Forest, and it gets a lot of snow out there. There's actually a couple of ski resorts out there because I went out there with my girlfriend and a friend of mine, and it was nice because in the national forest there's a lot less restrictions on what you can do. And it's also nice because everybody goes to Tahoe, which is about an hour up the road. So we literally were just exploring areas that had nobody in them, which was super fun because it was just us up there, and it was really, really cool. But yeah, it depends. I mean, even in Southern California, if you just drive a couple of hours, you can hit the snow pretty easy.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of ski resorts and stuff. It just depends upon where you want to go, all that stuff. Because like 4 hours from LA is Mammoth, which is a huge ski area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in the San Bernardino Mountains and things like that, which is even closer. So yeah, it really just depends upon what you want to do. You can get from here to the desert or from here to snow in 4 or 5 hours at the most, depending upon where you're at and where you're going, which is pretty impressive considering the size of the state. So yeah.
I just remember something else, from the early days of Thingomatic. And that was just something I do not miss. And it's this. You remember
Oh
this?
gosh, yes.
Putting on a piece of Captain without, any wrinkles on it. I do not miss that. I even have the MakeAbot had sort of a, I don't know what you call it, a scrape or to help lay down the Captain evenly.
Wow.
Somewhere. Also not worth anything, but nice memories.
Well, I mean, with the advent of print services like PEI, BuildTack, I mean, I remember when I very first got my hands on BuildTack, I used to do glass with a glue stick, and then I got my hands on BuildTack. Didn't know what I was doing and totally wrecked the first sheet. Thought it was absolute crap and threw it in the corner for like 3 months. And then I finally went back to it and I'm like, I'll give it another shot. I got 4 more sheets left. Because Kayla, back when she worked at BuildTack, somehow sweet talked me into getting it. And they had a really good deal on it at the time of Maker Faire. And then once I figured out how to use it, I was hooked on it. But I mean, I remember when people were talking about looking at the old MakerBot videos before I had a printer, and they had Annalise talking about how to put down your Kapton tape without too many bubbles. And they were using like the credit card and the soapy water and still getting bubbles. And it was just like, oh, and then if you were lucky, you get like 2 prints out of it before it tore. Because I know that when I got my Thingomatic off of tested, it actually I think had Kapton on the build bed. And yeah, that was. I don't talk about that very much, Daniel. It was traumatizing.
But so, what do you use these days, or are all these the printers you got behind you there? For example, I mean, do they have like build tech like sheets on it, or PEI or glass, or?
I still try to go with build tech myself, but a lot of them have that surface that they're coming as a carbide surface.
Super plate.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them have that.
Yeah. I personally, on my Genius, I went ahead and just put some PEI down because I print a lot of PETG. So I have the PEI, which is a really thin layer of glue stick, and that's personally what I use a lot. But if I were to use build tack with PEI, even with glue stick, it can just fuse to the surface. So that's the only reason why I don't use build tack on it. But if I was to print a lot in a PLA or other materials, yeah, I would definitely go with build tack. But because I apply it straight to the bed, I don't have the flexibility of just pulling beds on and off because the heater is attached directly to the glass on the artillery printers, or the super plate's been taped down to a glass bed, so you can't just go in there and switch things out. And I'm still torn on flex plates. I know that my build tack flex plate, which was not cheap, is very, very nice.
Yeah.
But most of the cheaper ones are just, I know a good conscience, I can't recommend them to people because I feel like they cause more problems than they fix. I remember helping somebody, and it was funny because I told them, like, double check that your flex sheet, which is not exactly spring steel, is actually sticking fly. He goes, oh yeah. Comes back a week later doing some other stuff. Yeah, you were right. The whole sheet's already bowed like this, and I'm like, yeah, I told you that's not true spring steel. I'm like, true spring steel, man, you can bend that thing into a U, and it goes boing, like it never happened. I mean, you can if you really get stupid, you can actually overdo it. But a lot of the cheap flex plates are just kind of relying on natural springiness in the sheet of steel. And I'm like, that's not spring steel. No, not spring steel.
I want to show you something.
Oh boy.
Talking about flex plates. Okay, back to this one. Okay, so this has been in storage for many years. But I used to work at a production company, so I made these myself. That is long before that was a thing. So I've milled, pockets for, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bunch of magnets in there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So you made your own flex plate.
Yeah. Works really good.
True story. Kayla over at Build Tack, credit to her, back when she worked there, she literally had them produce for me a custom sized flex plate just for my Thingomatic. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, really?
It's like a one-off size thing. To this day, I have no clue how she did it. It was like a one-off thing. Literally, it's like this tiny little Build Tack flex plate with these tiny little... I'm just like, you did not. Oh my gosh. But because just for nostalgia's sake, I print ABS a lot on the Thingomatic. That thing was actually nice because the build plate, as you know, takes forever to heat up and it kind of has a hard time holding temp. So when I would make my Maker Faire coins, what I would do is I would just use the Build Tack cold with PLA, just pop them off when they were done. But yeah, as Hack Monkey says, yeah, it's got to be spring steel. Yeah, it can't be spring steel, and I'm putting that in quotes because it has some springiness to it, but it's not true spring steel grade steel, which is not cheap, but that stuff really works. But,
did you ever have the heated bed connector short circuit on the Thingomatic?
Thankfully, no.
Because that was a thing, and I've replaced one or two myself. I think that's the reason there's a spare heated bed in there in the package.
Probably. I mean, and it's kind of funny because people always talk about, oh, this tried to kill me, and it's like, oh, you don't even know. You don't even know from back in the day with like those RepRap 12 and 24 volt PCB heaters that were notorious for burning out traces and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know.
And also the Thingomatic, just taking that out, that bed is tiny. It's like this.
Yeah. Oh, and Chewy also mentioned the machine is made from like 95% wood. So if anything goes wrong, the thing just goes up like a match.
I haven't even thought of that, but that's true.
That's
just crazy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, it's like one of these days I've been talking to one of the printer companies, and I'm going to do a video where it's not saying that this printer is a fire hazard, but I'm going to take one of the old printers because I have the newer version of it. I'm going to do 3 different tests. One of them is if the power supply short circuits. The other one is if the heated bed just like somehow gets power and never gets turned off. And the third one is what happens if the hot end, somehow the MOSFET gets fried in the on position and thermal runaway can't shut it down. What happens in those 3 various scenarios? Because I'm genuinely curious to see what happens if the safety mechanisms in there can't trip in, what actually happens. And I'm genuinely curious to see, because nowadays these printers are built from pretty much like 95% metal. How much of a potential risk is it? And then go from there. But yeah, we'll see.
When is this video coming out?
A couple of months probably.
I'm looking forward to it already.
Yeah, no, and I am honestly genuinely curious to see what happens, because I have an idea in my head of how it's going to go, but until you actually do it, the idea and reality are 2 totally different things. Because I constantly hear about people saying, my printer tried to burn my house down, and I'm like, well, what about your really cheapy charger that you got off Wish.com for $2? You don't think that thing isn't a fire hazard? I highly doubt it's ever been, safety approved by anybody, regardless of what the stickers say.
Or $7 toaster.
Yeah, that too. Your microwave, your fridge, your cell phone, your EVIT. I mean, there's so many things. Like I tell people, anything that has energy, be it electricity, fuel, compressed air, hydraulic, doesn't matter, is a potential danger. Yeah. We're just so used to it. We don't think anything about parking our car with like 10 or 20 gallons of petrol in the garage. Oh, I have a bumper car in the garage. It's got a bunch of fuel in it. Nobody ever thinks twice about it. But things can go wrong. It can happen, but nobody ever thinks twice about it. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go put toast in my toaster, and if something goes wrong, my toast could catch fire, and it could light my cabinet on fire.
Right.
Nobody ever thinks twice about it. I mean, it's like my grandmother's old neighbors. I don't know what they were cooking, but they lit their kitchen on fire and making breakfast at 6:30 in the morning and woke me out of a dead sleep with fire engines racing up the street and parks right in front of our house, sirens blaring and guys jumping out, yelling and screaming. And I'm like, oh! But yeah, no, there's so many things that are potential risks that we don't think about. But yet somebody brings in a printer and goes, oh, my printer's going to try and murder me today. And I'm like, yeah, probably less risk than you think. But I am genuinely curious, though, to see what happens. And I have thought about, I think you can still find the Thingomatic files online, because I have a laser cutter at work, just take some masonite and cut it out in the shape of like a Thingomatic and duplicate the test with something like that to show this is what we had back in the day, and show what could potentially go wrong with that and see if there's any difference between the materials used. But that's more of a maybe. But we'll see.
I think you can find a step assembly of the Thingomatic. At least there used to be one.
Even if not, I can just easily whip up a simple box shape with a couple of openings that I stick together and stick some electronics inside. It doesn't have to be an exact copy of it. It's more or less, here's what we had back in the day, a wooden frame machine with electronic strapped to it. If something went wrong, what would happen, versus a modern machine, which is a metal frame, a metal case, and go from there. That's more of what it is. It's just a side-by-side comparison. But yeah, that's that.
Guys, I'm seeing that my camera battery is about to die. So I think we have to. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have to go to bed, and I have to go to work or whatever.
Ski down some empty slopes for us,
Oh, brother, I'm sure
The
glad
ski
you.
slope is closed. The ski slope is closed now, so I'll
Yes,
just settle with having a coffee in the sunshine or.
It's time for bike riding.
Yeah, exactly. In a few weeks, it has to dry up first. It's very moist everywhere.
It's a mud bog.
Yeah. But this was really nice, and I think we should maybe do this again sometime.
Oh,
Yes, we do.
totally.
And thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it because it's been a long time since we got to talk.
Wasn't it? I think our very first ever stream that we had Daniel on, first or second.
I think it was. It was like right at the very beginning.
That was. This brings back a lot of memories. So, dude, huge thank you for being on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anytime, brother.
I think we can do this. There's a lot of things we can talk about that we can, schedule for some other time.
Yeah.
And Calvin, send your address, and I'll, in a year or two, I'll get the package over.
I think by that point I'll have flown out there and just got it.
Mr. Dogecoin over here be able to float you some of that cryptocurrency and.
Yes, Mister, I bought $20 in Doge today.
Mr. Bitcoin over here.
Algorand.
That's what he's got on his computer right now. He's going through all of his different cryptocurrencies, checking them out.
My Doge wallet, so I got it for safekeeping sake,
Is it like one of those, matrix, just a bunch of numbers coming down?
Here, I can show it. There's no
and graphs and stuff.
Info on it.
It keeps refreshing. That's where all our bandwidth's going.
You can't see it. It's washed out.
I can't see a thing, but I'm sure it's really.
Not that exciting.
Well, Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. Sure appreciate it, brother, and I'm glad to see you.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a blast for sure to catch up.
Anytime, my friend. You take care. And everybody else, thank you for
too.
joining us. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
Have a good morning.